Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today I'm very honored to speak with none other than the project called DxChain. And to lead this, we have Wei Wang, who is the CTO of this very exciting project. Thank you so much, Wei, for being on the channel today.
Thank you, Brad, for inviting me here for this interview. It's my pleasure to talk about the DxChain here.
And thank you all also for your time, though I do understand you're very busy. And we are going to try and provide all of you with a very objective analysis of DxChain. So let's explore this firstly with the slogan. It says on the internet that you are the decentralized big data and machine learning network. It also explains that you are trying to be what they call computing-centric as a blockchain. So that's exciting as well, Wei. We want to try and understand exactly what these terms mean. But let's first start with the motivations for what led you to create this exciting blockchain design, and most importantly, what were some of the problems that you foresaw in the marketplace, essentially to drive you to build this with your team?
Okay, since we all know blockchain has many important and innovative characteristics such as decentralization, immutability. However, there are only a few real applications, such as financial transactions and tracking assets in supply chain. We can use Bitcoin and Ethereum to buy something and use Hyperledger Fabric to trace the flow of a product. However, it did not change the fundamental. Way of we are using internet. However, if we could apply blockchain to the data storage and the computation, it will change the fundamental meaning of the internet. However, there's no such existing solution in the blockchain field to do this. Mm-hmm. We try to combine Hadoop and blockchain together to fill this gap.
Yes, and thank you for that brief sort of explanation, that overview. And we will explore Hadoop later because that is important to your design. But can we just discuss, let's go back a little bit more to your computing-centric nature. I really wanted to try and understand for the audience and for myself, what do you mean by being computer-centric?
Okay, so right now consider the computing. So right now, the blockchain, we can think about the blockchain. Bitcoin as the first generation of the blockchain technology, and Ethereum will be the second generation of the blockchain technology. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin did not have any real computation. Its hash power computation is just to maintain the consensus protocol. Does not really provide the real general purpose of computing. Mm-hmm. The popular of the Ethereum, because they say they provide the Turing complete computation. However, it for one single block, it only allow up to 3 million of the gas, mm-hmm. which is a very limited amount of computation. Right. It only can do very simple smart contract computation. For the general purpose of computation, it has nothing to do with it. For example, the database query and the MapReduce job, it cannot do it. I would say we want to introduce more general purpose of computation into the blockchain world. We want to compare the blockchain with the internet. Mm-hmm. That's our goal.
And clearly, and we'll discuss this later, clearly not only are you thinking about computation, but you're also factoring storage, which is a key component to your design. But if we explore this a little bit more in terms of your term of Internet of Value, could you tell us a little bit more about that in the context of what you're trying to do? You mentioned the internet, so how does that relate to value?
Yes, I'm thinking the Internet value, actually there's no clear definition on this term. Mm-hmm. But different people has different definition on the Internet of Value. What I think is the Internet value means the person who owns the data who will generate the value for the Internet. Mm-hmm. So that's why I understand the Internet of the value.
I see.
Right now, for example, we can consider the Google, Facebook possess the huge amount of the customers' data. For example, the Google own, I would say not say own, I would say Google have the navigation data for whoever use the Gmap data. Mm-hmm. And then if the people like us, I use the Google Map all the time. If there's a way for me to sell this data, I will do it. The reason is that I already know Google use it and use it to make money. I will not worry about my privacy. Right. And if the third party company can have such information and combine with other information, for example, the advertisement campaign will become more accurate and customized.
Right.
But right now, the Google and Facebook trying to monopolize the usage of this data. And the blockchain, what we're trying to do is let the data to really be the asset of the data owner. That means who generate the data. This is the dream. I think this is the dream of the blockchain.
Right.
This is the dream of the decentralization.
And thank you for explaining that, because fundamentally what you're saying is you're flipping the central model of data controls on its head to try and provide that for people to have, not only have that autonomy, but most importantly have that control, so that they can then, you know, utilize it to their benefit. So once again, for those who don't know, the D in DxChain does stand for data. The X is referring to its multiplier. So obviously it's about making it much more compounded in its value. So if we could also talk about that in the context of the overview itself as well, Wei, with regard to really just unpacking some of the key aspects once again of DxChain. So we've discussed important elements of the Internet of Value. You mentioned that. We've certainly explored the value of data. But could we talk about these keywords as well? Scalable, public, and ostensible blockchain. They're key components of your design. So can you tell us about your nature being public and also scalable?
Okay, so I think we are a public chain. Right now, if we categorize the blockchain, we can categorize into several chains, right? Private chains, public chains, and in the middle would be federation chains, right? For the private chain, I don't think it's a chain. I can consider a database, right? So for the federation chain means since there is a federation among the different organizations who control this federation control generating the blocks, but it's not really public to everyone.
Right.
So I truly prefer the fully decentralized public chain. So that's why we're thinking. So that's why I would prefer the real blockchain will be the public chain. So I would say the blockchain in DxChain, that means no one really control the blockchain. So this is the public chain.
I see.
For the scalability, that means right now we're talking about the data and the computation. It means we need high performance. That means for the performance, I need to mention two characteristics: the throughput and the latency. We need high throughput and low latency.
Yes.
And since we're trying to provide the proof of useful work, that means, especially for the data, if the data is huge, that means we want to use some of the Hadoop mechanism to handle the data, to split the huge chunk of the data into small pieces. For example, every single piece will be either 64 megabyte piece or 120 megabyte piece. So our chain will store the metadata of the file.
I see. So just to recap that, so essentially you're trying to compartmentalize the data into these units using the Hadoop so that you have higher throughput.
Yes, you're right. So that's why in order to solve this performance issue, we designed chain-on-chain structure.
Right.
Chain-on-chain means we have the three chains: one master chain, two set chains. Master chain is in charge of transaction-related operation. We can consider master chain as just like the Ethereum compatible blockchain.
Right.
And then two set chain, we have a computing set chain and the data set chain.
Yes. Yes, and I'm certainly looking forward to exploring them with you, and I do want to unpack them because they are, I noticed you do have that dual sidechain design, and that's quite unique. Usually we see a main chain, then we see sidechains evolve separately, but you do have specifics for your sidechain, so we will explore them. I did want to ask you, though, with regard to this statement that you made in your, either in your white paper or in your website, and that was with regard to being the most stable and the most universal solution for this distributed data storage. So I wanted to ask, and computation. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you can make that claim? How can you say that you are the most stable and the most universal solution?
Okay, so for the most, first of all, I will start with the most stable part. Okay. Stable means that right now, since our design of the DxChain is incorporating the Hadoop. Right now, the Hadoop is the industry-proved big data storage and computation platform. It has right now is the industry standard. Almost every big company using the Hadoop.
So can you give us some examples of that? Are we talking Google? Are we talking, what kind of businesses are we talking about?
Okay, so first of all, would you mind I have some short introduction for Hadoop?
Yeah, sure, of course. Go for it. We'd love to learn.
Okay, so Hadoop was started from the 3 research paper from Google. Will be the HDFS, means HDF is a distributed file system MapReduce for the computation engine and the big table for the distributed database. So Hadoop development was based on this research paper and starting from Apache Notch project and moved to the Apache Hadoop project in the year of the 2006. And then later on, Apache Hadoop project is open source project, has a lot of it's become more and more popular, has more traction from the open source freelancer support, has a big community support. And right now, it's still the open source project, but some of the big data vendors such as Cloudera and Hortonworks provide such commercialized version of the Hadoop for the company.
So just to clarify, so clearly they're open source. It's accessible for nigh on a decade now, this Hadoop code that people can access. And what you're saying essentially is it's being utilized by several companies. And it's in a way, I wanted to ask this to you with regard to, is it with respect to that mentioning of databases, is it much like the public counterpart to something like, for example, Hyperledger's technologies, where they have their what is it called? The sawtooth, or they have the other technologies that are specific to the more private blockchains. Is this something that's more designed to be that open source access for everybody to utilize?
Yes, and Hadoop is access for everybody. Everybody can download it. It's free to use. And Cloudera and Hortonworks just provide the support because these projects are really complicated.
Okay.
And then, so the design of the Hadoop is to use the community very cheap hardware to run the parallel computation and for the storage of big data. So here's the design principle for the Hadoop. And so far, because when I was working with Hortonworks, I know a lot of companies such as either start from Google. Google has a higher, very smart version of the Hadoop, and Facebook use it, and LinkedIn use it, and Walmart, and almost all the company, IBM, all the company.
I see. Well, it's very exciting that you're using Hadoop. I mean, obviously those who don't know anything about it can clearly see that this is not something that suddenly emerged with DxChain. This is something that you're utilizing to really benefit the blockchain, the public blockchain, in such a way where you're literally trying to explore what Google have done, understand and perhaps what Facebook have done with things like Cambridge Analytica information that's come forth in their centralized models and change the game for the user. So we appreciate your information, and we will explore Hadoop a little bit later. But if you could tell us a little bit more about your advantages as well, Wei, in terms of, obviously there are many things that you're building out with your team, but what are the key advantages to DxChain? Obviously, we're talking about in comparison even now to that centralized model that we see as the sort of premise for why you built it.
Okay, I see. So I would say that the core advantage of us is that we were because I'm the technical person. All of my work will coming from the technology side of it. So first of all, I would say we had the 4 main features for the DxChains.
Right.
First, this is a DxChain provides decentralized storage and computation environment. Second, we designed the chain-on-chain infrastructure.
Yes.
So the third, we combine Hadoop and blockchain together to solve the distributed file storage and computation in a decentralized environment.
Yes.
So for the last one, I will say this platform provides a very broad ecosystem to support business intelligence analysis, Yes, that's it.
Yes, and obviously there's so many different factors with regard to those four features that you mentioned. So let's explore in a sense the chain on chain, because that is unique. Can we tell us a bit more in detail about your master chain firstly, and then those two side chains you mentioned? Let's explore them now so people can understand just how complex that is and why all those different components are important in this design of the chain on chain.
Yes. First of all, before talking about individual chains, I want to explain how we do how the chain works.
Okay.
So let's consider a computation. If we want to do for example, the database query. So first of all, a client like you and me assign a job to the master chain, and then the master chain will forward it to the computing chain. And the computing chain will retrieve the data from the data chain if needed.
Right.
So, and then computing chain will run the computation and execute the jobs. Once it's finished, the computing chain will write the result to the data chain, and then to inform the master chain to let it know it's finished. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, all the participating nodes will get the rewards, regardless of providing computational power or storage power. So this is how three chains working together to achieve either storage or computation as a task. Mm-hmm. So right now, I will say a little bit about the roles of three chains. So the master chain will be in charge of the transaction-related task, and computing-centric chain will executing the parallel computation, mm-hmm. and the storage chain will store the big data and support the computing chain.
I see. So each of them have a key role, and it's almost like they're laid to perform different functions in a synergistic sense. But can I ask you fundamentally why you did it? So why did you break these down? What's the number one reason? What's the benefit for breaking these down? Is it again to try and improve that throughput and reduce that latency? Is that what it fundamentally does?
Yes, this is a very, very good question. So in general, first of all, when we try to think about using one chain to solve the data storage and the computation, I would say it's impossible. Mm-hmm. So the reason, especially for the performance issue. So for example, right, for the master chain, master need a consensus, right? We're in a decentralized environment. Right. But the consensus needs a very long time, no matter it's a proof of work or proof of stake or the new a consensus protocol, but still take a long time. Sure. So that's why right now they had an on-chain, off-chain, and sharding. There are many, many technology coming up, right? So I would say our master chain would be our master just in charge of the using the smart contract mm-hmm. to coordinate with the computing set chain and the storage set chain. And then this is the idea of the on-chain, off-chain idea, but we convert it into the master chain and the set chain.
I see. And that allows you to be all on-chain, is that correct?
Yes, it's all on-chain. So we will doing this, but the purpose we are generating the chain on chain will be increase the performance of the whole system. That's the main idea.
I see. Well, clearly that's an exciting development that you've built in, and no doubt it's something that's unique to the DxChain design. If we could also now talk about some of the data analytics with regard to, you focused on supporting business data. It's explained, business data exchange. So can you talk us through that a little bit more as well as one of those key features?
Yes. This is okay. I did a lot of so when I was working with HowtonWorks as a big data research and artificial intelligence, I did a lot of work. So in general, for the big data analytics, in general, people want to especially want to learn some business insight from the huge amount of data, mm-hmm. right? And we can consider a very simple thing would be the database query, right? And then, or we can, for example, if we consider big database, like a big data table for one specific column, we want to calculate the standard deviation and the mean and run some machine learning algorithm, right?
Right.
So in the DxChain, we want to do, because first of all, we have to have the data stored in the chain and then run the business analytics and the machine learning algorithm on top of the data.
I see.
However, there's some limitations. Not all of the machine learning algorithms are good in this platform, because since we are using the MapReduce principle of the Hadoop, and in the MapReduce environment, the machine learning will be the map intensive algorithm will have good performance. For example, the stochastic gradient descent random first. This type of algorithm will have the good performance. So DxChain will use the same principle.
I see. So you're focused on the best of what these different technologies can offer to essentially provide for a more performant blockchain. And there are other blockchains doing something, with regard to focus on performance. But again, the way in which you're breaking this down with your own dual sidechain structure is unique that I've read so far. Are you aware of anyone else? I mean, we haven't really discussed competitors yet, but are you aware of anyone doing something of this nature where you do have these two different synergistically aligned sidechains?
Okay, so you are talking about
that are running on chain. Are you aware of any other blockchain projects doing something quite like this?
Not really, but I can consider some of the potential competitors. Right. So actually, we had two categories of competitors. First category competitor would be the storage provider, such as StorJ and Filecoins.
BlueZell, I think, is also another example of storage.
Yes. So the reason is that, but we truly believe the internet of the value. We cannot just say that store the data. We cannot let the data as a garbage in, garbage out. Right. We have to find the business insight. We have to find the value from the data. That means we have to combine the data and computation together. So for the StorJ and the Filecoin, they only handle the data storage, but they're not the computation. I see. So the secondary so the second category of the competitor will be some chain provide the computation. I would say the Golem. You heard of Golem, right?
Yes, Golem.
Golem provide the high performance computing.
Yes.
However, so I would say the computing. I will categorize the computing into two categories, two subcategories.
Okay.
First category will be like us. Our computation will based on the data. That means all of the computation needed the data. So the second subcategory of the computation will be the computation does not need a lot of data. For example, to calculate the number of the bit of the pi, 3.34 something, right? Or the 3D rendering. For this computation does not need a lot of data for the computation. They can just pure for the computation.
I see. So just to clarify that as well, what I wanted to ask you is at the moment we're seeing the emergence of different blockchain projects that are focusing on either storage, or we often see them focusing on now on computation as a buzzword. For example, another one coming out at the moment is Arweave, which is doing some exciting things on computation. But can I just clarify with you, are you suggesting that it's important to have both in your design intrinsically built on-chain for real value?
You are right, definitely correct. So the reason why we say that, when we say because when we design this complicated system, we cannot design one part and then design another part.
Okay.
So if we're doing that, this part cannot really couple to each other. The performance will become very bad. So when we design, when we think the real value of the operating system like a blockchain must have the both computation and storage together into one place.
Thank you for making that very clear. And obviously, Wei, you've got many different things building out. And if you'd like to know more, obviously people can go to the website and learn about the architecture overview. There is a detailed information, certainly in the white paper. But if we could now talk about yourself as part of the team, Wei, because obviously I haven't explained your background yet, and I did that because I waited until now to discuss your team. You are obviously a key person in this. You are certainly the CTO. You are the chief scientist for DxChain. So can you tell us a bit about your background? Obviously, you're very knowledgeable as well with regard to your position. And my apologies for the beginning because I did announce you as a CEO, and you are the CTO rather.
CTO, yes.
So
yes.
The principal scientist for DxChain. Let's talk about your experience, your knowledge, and why you are able to lead this team.
Okay, so actually before starting this DxChain project, I was working at AT&T doing the blockchain research, especially for blockchain database. At that time, I was thinking about the BigChain DB and the many fun technology. That's a federation chain.
Right.
So, and then even before, I was working with Houghtonworks, doing big data research and artificial intelligence research.
I see.
And maybe a lot of people never heard of the Houghtonworks, but I want to have a little bit introduction for the Houghtonworks.
Okay.
So Houghtonworks is the one of the 3 big data vendor in the United States, I would say worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't know Houghtonworks, but know their product. Hadoop, HDFS for distributed file system, Hive for distributed database, Peak for a really comprehensive platform for analytics. Mm-hmm. They manage and maintain Hadoop open source project, and then provide support for the companies. That's how it works. I joined Houghtonworks on 2014 before their IPO, and then when I joined the Houghtonworks, it's still a small company, and I grow with it, and I talk to the engineers and talk to the customers. So that's why I have both technology background in distributed systems, mm-hmm. and know how the people really, how the customer understand how to use the big data in the real commercial world.
I see. So clearly you are really well versed in the technology, essentially, of big data, which is important, obviously, because that's one of the key factors of your design. Also, Alan Zhang, he's also the CEO. He's a key figure in your team. Tell us about him. He's had 10 years experience in what they call CISA and CISSP certifications. Clearly that's not easy to achieve. He's done both.
Yes, actually, Alan Zhang is the CEO of this project.
Yes,
he had 15 years. Actually, he had 15 years of the security. His domain covers a lot of areas. For example, the mobile security, network security, IPS, IDS, IPS, and a lot. And also, he's the founder of the TrustLoop, an AI-backed security company in Silicon Valley.
I see. So clearly, once again, I mean, when we're looking at different projects, obviously one of the key factors is making sure that the team has experience, that they genuinely can back what their plan is with the right kind of knowledge sets. What we're seeing from both parties is certainly the capability, arguably, to do it. But how big is your actual team beyond both yourself and Alan?
Oh, I see. Right now we had nine people in the team. We had 5 engineers, and we had 5 software engineers, and 2 community managers, and 1 people in charge of the public relation, and 1 people in charge of fundraising and investor relation. And we had 1 more community manager join us next Monday.
Okay, that's exciting. So already it's developing. As you build out your company, no doubt, as you progress through your ICO, are you expecting that this team will expand?
Of course, yes. I think because this project is really, really complicated, we are going to plan to at least double our engineer team at the end of the year.
Okay, well, that's exciting for anyone who's considering the value of your utility. If we could talk now about your partners. Now, one thing that I will say is that many people don't know perhaps some of the names that come up as the list of partners involved. For example, Pre-Angel is a very prominent, not only in your listing as a central figure, but very prominent if anyone does research in their position. Block VC, Origin, Node Capital, Defund, Badwater, all well-known VCs. How are you going with regard to securing partnerships, and what's happening, what's planned for the future that you can tell us?
Yes, so actually we are really appreciate the support from this crypto funds support, because the reason is they are supporting us just because they believe our project. They think the storage and the computation will be the next real generation of the blockchain. So they believe this project, so they invest in us.
Okay.
And they will help us a lot to provide a lot of resource for us, either legal process, and teach us how to do the right thing at the right time, and give us a lot of technology support. So these partners, investors really are helpful for us.
Okay, so it's important that we do talk about this. So they're not just simply money injected into your project. They're actually going to provide for real world support as you build out long term. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And most importantly, they believe this project.
Okay. What about traditional business? Can we talk about that for a moment? Are there any non-crypto investors that you're aware of or that are trying to support you in your project as well?
They're trying to. However, we are since we are this is a blockchain project. We want to be just have a more connection with the crypto world. Yes.
Well, it's exciting though to know that there are traditionalists backing and knocking on your door. Those that are from the traditional marketplaces, understanding the value of blockchain, and perhaps that's what we want to see more of. Is this transitioning of old money into the new, in the sense of they becoming aware of the value of blockchain. So we appreciate that remark. Now, if we could talk now a little bit more on perhaps the Hadoop. We have explored it briefly, but you are an expert in this. So I wanted to talk about that in the context of HDFS as a file storage rather, and just really in one more sense, explain the consensus mechanisms, explaining the computational engine of Hadoop and what it actually can do.
Okay, so this question is really long. I will split up into the small questions and try to. So seems like you and then in our chain structure we had two set chains: computing set chain and the storage set chain. First of all, I will start with the storage. DSC data set chain. We call the data set chain. Would be more professional. DSC data set chain. Our consensus protocol would be is the proof of space time. I'm going to talk about it later. So we also incorporated the HDFS as part of the design of HDFS in this idea. Okay. So the reason, like I said before, such as we have a big file, for example, a movie, like I would say 1 gig of size, 1 gig size, 1 gig of the movie.
Right.
So it's really difficult to store the whole file, this whole file as one file into one places. This is very difficult.
And we've all had those problems before. You know, when you have a movie, when it was first available, when we had the access to the internet, we all had those problems. So you're arguing that you can solve that problem by reducing the file size.
Yes. So we will use the HDFS design. We will truncate. We will split the very big file into small parts.
Okay.
I would say either 64 megabytes or 128 megabytes as a piece, and then distribute it into and then store this file into a distributed, decentralized file system such as IPFS or Swarm.
I see.
And then the data section DSC is in charge of storing the metadata. That means where we can locate this small part, and then in order for us to reassemble this data in this small piece of the data into one bigger piece. So this, and then this is how we use the HDFS. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit about our consensus protocol.
Please go ahead. I would like to learn about this right now.
Yeah, this is a POST. Some people call it POST. I would say the P means proof of space time.
Right.
So this is our idea. We want our storage miner continuously store the file for a period of time. For example, 30 days. So we want this file be stored and online all the time within these 30 days. So the POST try to verify this continuous storage. So in order to do this, we have to there is a 3 typical attack. I tell you why. Okay. 3 typical attack would be the Sybil attack.
Right. So Sybil attack, just to clarify.
Sybil attack is the first. Second would be the outsourcing attack.
Okay, outsourcing.
The third would be the generation attack.
Okay.
The Sybil attack means that we want one file to be stored 5 copies in the network. However, there's a really bad person who create 5 identity, but this person only store 1 copy, and they say, "Oh, I store 5 times." So they will get 5 times of incentive it's supposed to be. This is the Sybil attack.
I see.
So the second attack would be the outsourcing attack. Outsourcing attack means, for example, I'm the really bad player in the network.
Right.
I know there is a 5 copy in the network. And in the very beginning, I store this file, and then I immediately delete it. But for the next day, just before the verification, I can download it from other places, such as you.
Right.
And then I would say I stored it for the 1 day, but actually I didn't. I only store 1 minute and 1 minute.
So it's essentially a third party. It's a third party abuse.
Yeah, you're right. So the third will be the generation attack. Generation attack means I can regenerate these files without storing it.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to against these three type of attack, we're using the POST. POST is a combination of the PDP and another set of the cryptography algorithms.
Right.
The PDP, so the PDP means proof of data possession. This algorithm was invented by Professor Dang Song in the year of the 2007.
Right.
This algorithm would be good for verify the storage, verify the file storage without retrieving it.
I see.
So that means if you store my file, I will be sure you really store that file, but I didn't retrieve that file.
I see. So it's designed to be completely anonymous in that sense. Is that the idea?
Yes. And then PDP is perfect for the cloud storage, but not good for a decentralized environment.
Right.
And then so that's why the POST is an improvement of the PDP to fit the decentralized environment.
I see. If we could now extrapolate a little bit more on perhaps the storage, so people can understand, how are you achieving storage in your design?
Okay, I see. So since DxChain is a public chain, so it's very easy for the miner, I would say the storage miner, to join the network. They will just in the future they will just download a client and provide, as long as your home your personal computer have some free space, you can join the network and then earn the incentive. That's it. That's very easy to join that.
I see. Well, obviously, it's a key point. And I also wanted to talk to you with regard to, you were mentioning before your consensus protocol, your space-time element, but also you refer to two key parts of the consensus protocol in terms of computation. And you referred to the verification game and also the provable data computation. You talked about the PDC. Now, what the verification itself, can you tell us a little bit more about why that's so important in the overall computational design?
Okay, so this is a really, really unique design. So consider either the Bitcoin or the Ethereum, right? And just a transaction, you can easily you can very easily to track the past record to verify the computation. It's very easy. However, for the general purpose computation is very, very difficult. First of all, I'm going to explain the PDC, proof of data computation, and I'm going to the second part of the verification game.
Okay, thank
you.
For
example, if I want to calculate 1 plus 1, so we will know 1 plus 1 equals 2, right?
Right.
However, suppose this computation is really complicated. Some really bad players just have a random number, or I say they didn't really do the calculation. They just, I would say 3 or 4 or 5, right?
Sure.
Then we cannot guarantee that. So based on the statistical principle, so in my white paper, I had a mathematical proof. So if we can, in a mid-size of the network, for example, 1,000 active participants in the network, if we have 7 identical results, I'll be sure we will have the probability of this result will be the correct answer.
Right,
with the probability of the 99.99 with 7 nines after dot. It's a very high probability.
So it's employing an algorithm of probabilities based on a multiplicity of equations that can revert back to the same answer. Yes.
So this is the proof of data computation. Proof of data computation can verify the correctness of the computing results. And the verification game can verify the computing process. I'll tell you why.
Right.
So the verification game has three roles. I would say the solver, challenger, and the judge. For example, if I give you a task, you are the for example, if you are the solver, you generate the result, and then some of the challenger will try to see whether or not you are do the correct thing and try to challenge you.
Right.
And then the judge will make the final decision.
I see.
And then so this decision is not based on the reputation. It will based on the so all the players solver and the challenger must have to have some deposit to play this game.
Right.
And if for the 40 players, they will lose all of their deposit. With the time going, this bad player will just go.
I see. So that's obviously that's a key aspect. Obviously, that verification, as you said, is key. It's fundamental.
Yes. So that's why our both verification game and proof of data computation working together to ensure the correctness of computation.
I see. Well, thank you for explaining that, because again, it reinforces the validity of your entire design. Because that's why we discuss this, is so we can explore all the components that build out what DxChain's trying to do. Now, if we could talk about one other element, and that is privacy. Tell us about that. How are you achieving privacy in the DxChain design?
Okay, and before we are talking about the privacy preserving, I want to mention another important function in our in the DxChain network. We say the data model. Actually, data model will just like give data model will give the definition to the data. With the definition, data become the knowledge, has the value.
I see.
Data model play two important roles here. The first, it makes the computation easier. We can consider, with the definition, the data will become like a database table. We can calculate we can do some calculation at the column level. This is the first row. For when we design the privacy, for the second row is when we design the privacy preserving, we consider many different mechanisms, such as homomorphism encryption, multi-party computation, secret sharing. However, all of these algorithms are really computational intensive. It is not good for big data computation.
Right.
So finally, we choose the two new mechanisms. One is data model enabled encryption. Second will be the differential privacy. For the data model enabled encryption, that means, for example, if I want to upload the data into the chain, before uploading, I will encrypt the column before uploading to the on the chain. So for the differential privacy, the algorithm will try to add the noise at the column level or the row level, whatever.
I see.
And then just add the noise to the data. And then for the statistics, has no effect. However, you cannot treat the single record. So for the final point, these two data model enabled encryption and differential privacy is all allow the user, the data owner, to control the data privacy.
Right. And that's obviously quite a unique feature. The degree in which, the depth in which you've gone into, I noticed in your privacy elements, is quite sophisticated, and again, reinforcing not only allowing the person to control their data, but literally control the privacy element of their data in what you're explaining. So I appreciate that. If we could now talk about your roadmap, it's obviously something that we often do talk about with CEOs, not just with the CTOs, but it is important because we want to find out what your plan is, not just technologically, but overall. So tell us about where we're at in terms of DxChain's plan and what we can expect in this year.
Okay, so there's many things I want to talk about. So okay, I will start a little bit further from last year. Last year, DxChain project was kicked out. We designed the algorithm, designed the consensus protocol, and this January we start the we finish writing the white paper, and start on the February we start fundraising, and and our anchor investments go very quick. And
so let's just clarify that you, by anchor investment, you're talking about the seed investors, the original investors.
Yeah.
Right.
So okay. So for the institutional investment just closed at the end of the last month.
Right.
The end of the May.
Sure.
And okay. So we are hoping. So we will have some demo. MVP, minimum viable product demo, at the end of this month.
Okay, so that's exciting. I wanted to talk to you about that because obviously whenever we see a prototype, that means that real tech is being done. This is not just a conceptual thing. How is that MVP going from your knowledge? Obviously you have seen it, you do know about it. We'd love to see it. How are you feeling about that from what you know?
So far so good. Just wait till until a couple of weeks until we can see it.
Sure.
So, and then also at the end of the year, we will have, before the end of the year, we will have our testnet on the DSC dataset chain, testnet online. And then early next year.
When can we expect that, the testnet?
maybe I would say the Q4.
Okay, so Q4.
Q4.
So we're really looking at building out this, for the long haul, but there's many different aspects building out real progressions that are going to have real effect on your building out as an actual project that's going to do something potentially on the blockchain.
Yeah, and on the early next year, when we say Q1, we will have the mainnet on the DSC part go online.
Right.
And also we will start our KYC whitelist start from the July 1st to July 31st. You are the first person outside our team know this information.
Well, thank you so much. So now I am the first person, but clearly I'm not because everyone else is going to know. So I appreciate letting you know. So KYC, July 1 right through to July 30th.
No, sorry. Yeah, KYC and the whitelist will be July 1st to the July 31st will be the next month.
Yes.
Because the June, right?
That's
and
correct.
ICO will start on August 1st.
Okay, so let's clarify that. So July 1st right through to the end of July will be the KYC. So make sure that if you are considering, this utility, it's important you are aware that there is a period of time for KYC of 1 month. After that, then we will see the following, which will be is that into August, you said?
August 1st will be we will start ICO.
ICO. So the ICO will commence 1st of August, and that's important for all people to know so they're crystal clear on exactly the processes. So thank you for being so transparent. We do really appreciate that. Now, obviously, it's not... sorry, go ahead.
After ICO, we'll try to listing on exchange.
Okay, so obviously you are focused on specific exchanges. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
For this part, I couldn't disclose.
Sure.
I couldn't disclose this information. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I do try to get as much information as I can out of the CTO, but I do appreciate that. And thank you for letting us know about these progressions because many people are not, they're not in the Hadoop loop, when you're allowing us to be aware of what's actually going on. Is there anything else with regard to the roadmap that you feel is important for this year coming?
And then that's mainly the roadmap for this year and early next year. Since this project is really, really complicated.
Sure, and quite simply, clearly what you're articulating, no doubt. Even we'll talk about the tokenomics later, but the team's there for the long haul. This is just the beginning. Would you say for the DxChain team and the DxChain project?
Yes. I would say this would be just, I would not say the beginning, but I would say not the beginning of the beginning, but I would say for the whole project, this is still the beginning of the whole team for the project because this would be very, very huge project. Right,
and you're obviously very positively geared. Like you clearly understand that this is something that can be done. So in the sense of being global, do you foresee this could be something that evolves into a global network?
Yes, definitely. Yes, we are really optimistic about this project because since we have very clear of the design on the whole system, and we have the expert on blockchain, expert on the big data, and then combination. So
sure.
We really have confidence on can do this excellent work.
Right, and you clearly have the backers behind you in terms of strategic investment. Let's talk now about your use case, though, because that's going to be really important to evidence this to all people who are considering you as a utility. What can you tell us about clear use cases that can be applied in the real world?
I think I can give you 2 examples as the example. So, so the first, our first customer will be the TrustLook. So TrustLook is an AI-backed security company in Silicon Valley. Right now, it protects Huawei cell phones and protects Qualcomm's Snapdragon 835 chips.
I see. So these are real companies?
Yes.
Right.
So TrustLook, you can search online.
Okay, so if people aren't aware, just to clarify, that's TrustLook. If you'd like to know more, there's a specific link between this company and TrustLook, and they are a real and current existing entity and company.
Yes. Yeah, you can say www.trustlook.com. You can find this information.
Right.
And then TrustLook will write their DML data model language into the DxChain D app. And then the DxChain the app will collecting the information from the other devices, especially the cell phone, such information, and then send it to the DxChain.
I see.
And then go ahead. And then sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
And then the business part, and then TrustLoop can run the business intelligence on top of the DxChain to get the business insight. Right now, TrustLoop is protecting up to 500 million end devices and had 3 billion monthly API calls. So if TrustLoop can convert a small portion of the customer using DxChain the app, that would be a huge customer opportunity.
You basically answered the question. I was going to ask you the comparison in terms of the value of TrustLook itself. Clearly, it's going to onboard onto the platform of DxChain, and what you're making very clear is already a very valuable company.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
And the second example, I would say the healthcare.
Healthcare.
So right now, almost all of the pharmaceutical company and the research institute do not have enough patient data to do their research for new drug discovery and new therapy and whatever. They do not have enough patient data. In the United States, we have the HIPAA compliance. It's a very restricted compliance. I think in the Europe and in the Australia, they still have some other similar regulation to control this.
Yeah, so just to clarify the audience, HIPAA compliance is any of the measures put in place for the medical industry, and it's very rigorous, and that's what Wei is alluding to now.
Yes. However, some of the patients want to disclose their information. For example, some of the patients had some family genetic disease. They want to disclose his or her information to the pharmaceutical company or the research institute. Try to help the expert domain, the medical expert to just generate a cure, right? So they can use this network, try to share their data.
I see.
Or some people do not really care their privacy, or they can so they can just send some of the information without disclose their name or some sensitive data on the network.
It also enables data flow, as you know, because this system allows for this fundamental and key medical data to be transacted or passed upon to different agencies that otherwise just simply doesn't happen. Yes.
So such information, medical information can be unlocked, such as genetic sequencing information, obviously X-ray images such as breast cancer X-ray images. There are a lot of information can be uploaded onto the chain. And
and these are fundamental use cases because we're talking about one of the most important things right now, and that is health of people. And if blockchain or if a project can facilitate that, surely that's a good thing for the long-term value of the project itself. I noticed also, Wei, that you have potential in the AI industry and also in smart cities.
Yes. So for the smart city is that, so right now, when we say smart city device, I would say all smart, this is based on my real experience. So I was working with a company who can generate thermostat devices. And this thermostat, so they're not, so that company collecting the thermostat information because of that, they can sell this information to the mechanics if they found their heater or air conditioning had some problem. They will sell this information to the mechanics and making the money. However, however, if I'm the data owner, my family, I bought this product, I generated information. Why I didn't have control on that? So that's why I'm thinking if and then we can use we can generate some DxChain the app to collecting such smart devices data and then put it and then have trading using this network. That would be a huge benefit for many data owners.
Right. And it's clearly exciting that you have articulated so many different use cases in your white paper, and it was good to explore them. If we could now talk about one of the more controversial, more challenging topics for you, no doubt, will be talking about risks, talking about concerns, talking about criticisms. Let's really get real about this. And you, no doubt, as you've built this, you've heard from various members of the community. Most importantly, I'd like to discuss the more academic perspectives, what are the risks for DxChain? What are the potential concerns you have with your technological knowledge for it as it becomes a leading big data company?
Okay, so there are a lot of concerns and for this project. I will mention several and then try to First of all, I would say we will lose of the talents for the people, right?
Right.
So especially our DxChain, we are located in the Silicon Valley. The salary is very high in Silicon Valley. It's extremely high because of Google, Facebook. They pay a lot.
Yes.
So
that's because they're centralized and they can afford it.
Yes. So that's why. So and then we know this problem, and then we had right now. I think we have some solutions. Okay, and then also right now it's really difficult to hire the people who had both big data knowledge and the blockchain. Okay. It's very difficult to find such person. Okay. So we had some solutions. First of all, we are engineer team. So far we had 5 engineers, and we are still a small team, and we prefer the teamwork, and we have our internal training mechanisms. And we can train each other very quickly. And the engineer in Silicon Valley are really good, and they can catch up new things very quickly. Right. This is our first solution would be the internal training. Okay. Second, we will enlarge our recruitment process. We want to hire, for example, like the Canada people, Australian people, Europe people, Asian people.
To build your global network.
Yes, you're right. And then the third way would be in the future. Definitely, we will open source our project in the near future. Right. And we hope the community will have more contribution on our project.
Well, let's talk about that now, because that would arguably be one of the hindrances to the design currently. Your GitHub, your code, is it closed currently, or and are people able to access any aspects of your code now for analysis or for applications?
Yes, because because this project is really complicated. We don't want to generate, we don't want to open source really bad quality of the code to the public. Okay. So, but we are working hard on this part, and we will open source as soon as possible.
Sure. So in that respect, I wanted to ask you this, because we often see code reviewers, and I'm quite vocal about this at times, is that sometimes it's premature to have someone go and do a code review on the very beginnings of a blockchain project like yours. Is that your same sentiment? Do you feel that it would be remiss for someone to go in and analyze code right now, given that you're still building it?
I would say the code review wouldn't be good at a very early stage on the big project. At least we have really had something, especially we had MVP. At that stage, the code review will be better.
I see, and so that's coming in the coming months. So I appreciate that. Now, with regard to some other aspects, let's talk about the SEC, uncertainty in the regulation domain. Are you concerned at all about that?
Yes. So we use the top tier. We use the top tier law firm in both Singapore and the United States to help us to handle this legal process. Right. Actually, DxChain embrace the regulation because we are doing the real work. We are not just doing this for cheating for money. Right. So that's we embrace the regulation.
I see. So once again, you're confident for the long-term value, and you endorse, those that are trying to support the real enterprise value of what you're trying to do. So let's finally talk about now some of perhaps the security weaknesses, or even the challenges associated with social media. Those two, in terms of failing to develop in that sense, as you mentioned. Let's talk about those two concerns.
Okay, first of all, I've talked about the security. I would say, one may say a blockchain is safe or not, mainly depending on the consensus protocol. Right. Since and then based on our chain infrastructure, we had 3 chains. Our master chain would be Ethereum compatible chain. That would be we will use the proof of work. That's really mature.
It's really proven as well.
Yes, and for our data chain, we use the POST proof of space time has a very restricted mathematical proof. And for our computing-centric, we use verification game and proof of data computation. We still have a very restricted mathematical proof. So that's why this consensus make our chain very secure.
I see. Now, if we talk about that final element, which is always challenging given that it really is a new architecture of business, or a new framework rather, is that you suddenly have the elements of social media thrust upon the business model. So in that respect, with refer to the failure to develop, have you factored in your design the importance of social media as a component of your educational value in the long term, so people can continually be updated, be informed via Telegram, via YouTube, via whatever medium is required, medium itself as as an article source? What are you doing to ensure that doesn't hinder you, or rather supports you?
So I think I would say the community really help us. Really help us.
Right.
And right now, what we are using the Telegram as a channel. Right now we have the investment. Sorry, we had the investment Telegram channel. Is 90,000 people so far, and we just start a new ICO Telegram channel today, and we're going to have more technical channel as well.
Right.
So our purpose, since we are going to educate our investors with more details and what the DxChain really is, and we will create a more bounty program to our purpose will let these investors really have fun to know what we are. And so this is the first strategy, and the second strategy is we hope the influencer like you and the other influencer try to interview us and ask us some technical questions, and then doing this can make more people to know and understand this project. And we hope you can come back to us more frequently to ask us more questions and the milestone and progress.
I couldn't agree more, because you hit the nail on the head in that the technology is the fundamental. So as we build out the social media presence, the fundamental again is making sure that the integrity of the technology is upheld. And we're not simply just a group of people in social media trying to implore people to explore certain aspects of it. Let's say I'm trying to be as safe as I can, but fundamentally it's the long-term technology of any project that of value that is the imperative in social media. So in that respect, clearly you're doing things, but I want to go back to your Telegram for a moment. One of the problems I've noticed is that you mentioned it does have 90K, but there have been a few issues with regard to the quality of the content there. What are you doing to address that issue right now?
Yes. So so I really appreciate you mentioned the quality, and our team has already noticed that problem as well. So since our founding team founders all have technology background, we are really working hard on the consensus research and engineering work. So, but since our Telegram, our community goes very fast, strong, and we noticed there are a lot of spam message and advertisement, a lot of bad things.
Yes.
And we are creating the third generation our bot, which we just update our Telegram bot recently. It will clean most of the spam information as well.
That's exciting.
So this is, and also previously we had two community manager to handle this.
Right.
And I think they're not enough. So I would say, like I said before, one new people coming next Monday to join us.
So the great news is that there's more to come for the quality of Telegram for DxChain, and we do appreciate that information and that update. Now, obviously, we need to talk about the tokenomics. We need to do some token talking with regard to two things. One is, what is the plan in terms of the tokenomic design, in terms of distribution and key facts, but also I want to talk about your determination in the sense of, what are you deterministically? Are you a utility by design?
Okay, so first of all, I will say our token is a utility token. So this utility is designed specifically for is designed specifically for the primary token using in DxChain networks. This DxChain will provide incentives to attract the participant to join the network to maintain this ecosystem, to make this community bigger and stronger, to provide more storage and computational power. This is the main purpose and the design for our token. Our token name is DX,
right?
Only 2 characters,
right?
Yes. And
so
yes,
that's the ticker itself is DX when people are becoming familiar with that. But I wanted to ask you this: you mentioned it's a utility, but how can you ensure that will be recognized as a utility by the SEC?
Okay, so like I said before, we had we use top tier law firm from both Singapore and United States, top tier law firm to help us to comply with all the regulations.
Right.
So we're not doing this by ourselves. We are doing this using the top tier law firms.
Right. So you're confident that it will be deemed as a utility in its finality. Yes. Okay. So now let's talk about perhaps some of the more exciting things for some, and that is with regard to the tokenomics in terms of your distribution model, your lockup. Let's get through everything and find out exactly where you stand.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I have some numbers. So, first of all, I will talk about the token distribution.
Okay.
That will worth 20,000 Ether.
Okay, that's for your private sale. That's ongoing currently. Is that correct?
Finished. We finished.
Right, finished. Right.
And the ICO will be our RCO. The soft cap of ICO will be 8,000 Ether. Hard cap will be 16,000 Ether.
Right, and that's for the whole pre-sale through to crowd sale.
Yes, cross sale. The hard cap is 16,000 Ether.
16,000 Ether. Okay, so that's interesting. And so for those who weren't familiar or don't know, now you have all the information from the CTO himself. And I do appreciate, once again, that transparency.
And then the team will take 10%.
Right. And is there a vesting period? Or is there a lockup period in design that's separate?
Oh, sorry.
Let's talk about that.
And then all of the rest will be contributed to the ecosystem.
Right. So let's talk about lockups.
Lockup time for the investor will be 1 year.
Right. So for those who are considering, in that respect, let's talk about the team, for example. Is there a lockup period for those who are investors as team members as well?
Yes. Our lockup period for the team is longer than the investor.
Right.
But we are not finalized yet, but it's longer than the investor.
Okay. Now let's talk about, you mentioned a year-long lockup. Let's explore that to be really specific. Is that designed to be graduated over time? Is that okay, let's talk about how.
For the 1 year for the 1 year lockup plan for investor, this is 25% unlock before listing.
Right. Okay.
And then another 25% will be 3 months after listing.
Right.
One more 25% after 6 months after listing. That would be the 75%, right? So for the final one will be 1 year after.
I see.
25% after 1 year after the listing.
Makes sense. So essentially, it's quartered, so that there's four installments.
0 months, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months.
Perfect. Yes. That makes a lot of sense. Now, does that apply for all participants? Is that the same case for crowd sale participants? How does that work?
No, only for the investors.
Right.
Only for the investors.
So only investors. And for those who are in the crowd sale, they simply access it when it becomes available through the ICO. Is that correct?
Oh, for the ICO part, I do not have the clear information.
Sure. No, I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But I really do appreciate your transparency, because we just need more people to represent this, in such a way. So thank you for doing that. Now, if we could finish off perhaps with a final statement from you, Wei, with regard to, future, not just future, but also your conclusions as a whole with regard to where DxChain stands now. How do you see the future of DxChain building? And what would you like to say to all the community for those who perhaps don't know anything or would like to know more?
So I would say DxChain will be I hope DxChain will become the first blockchain ecosystem can provide the big data storage and computation, and provide the machine learning and analytics platform for all the communities. Right. I hope we should have more support from the community. Give us more support and helping us if we met some problems. and the
Absolutely.
node packet. Yes.
And Wei Wang, thank you so much for your time. I understand as the CTO you're very busy. You are leading the technological front for this DxChain team and project. And on behalf of all those who wanted to know about you, thank you sincerely for representing today. I look forward to speaking with the CTO, Alan, later if that's possible. But for now, let's just recap very quickly. You are simply trying to do something new in the decentralized space for big data. You are designing it in such a way where you're going to have a main chain and two very important side chain focuses on storage and computation. You are going to blend them all together, you're layering your technology, and you're doing something fundamentally to allow people to have control of their data right from the outset. So thank you very much for explaining what you're about and what you're trying to do. And once again, hopefully we can do an update sometime in the future and explore the next phase of your development.
Thank you very much for your time to interview me.
No problem. Thank you very much. That's Wei Wang, CTO of DxChain. Thank you very much.